My name is Belinda Crawford. I am from South Africa.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Herstory TV and the Herstory podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia this time. And I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman coming to us all the way from Southern Africa. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the tribe. Tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Gertrude. My name is Belinda Crawford. I am from South Africa, in KwaZulu-Natal to be specific. I am 46 years old, and this is my story. I have been raised as a state child from infancy, from the time I was 2 years old. My mom and my dad were not from the same race, and back in the day, it was illegal to have interracial relationships or marriages. However, my mom was not in a position to take care of me, so my mom handed me over to the state. And growing up as a state kid, I had literally moved from various homes, various foster homes to foster homes, and landed up in an institution called the Reformatory. And I was there until I was 18 years old, because as a state child, once you reach 18, then you are released. But prior to being released from the Reformatory, my foster mom had explained to me that I wasn't her child. And when she said that, immediately I went into an identity crisis, which literally meant that if this lady is not my mom, and she introduces me at the age of 9, I met my mom for the first time when I was 9 years old. She introduces me to my mom, and that is the community that which I was raised in, actually, to think of Black people as less than. So immediately it was a one night introduction, and ever since that day, it created an identity crisis within me. Because then, who am I if my foster mom is not my mother, and a Black woman cannot be my mother, especially being raised in that era to think that Black people are being raised in an environment, in actual fact, to be very anti-Black. So coming out of Reformatory was a challenge, because not knowing who my parents were, and also not understanding that how could I have been part of how could I have been living in a community which I'm not part of. Neither I'm not one of them. I'm not my mom. I wasn't raised with my mom culturally. I wasn't raised with my mom culture, traditions, or creed. And being raised as a state child, we were so many of us in Reformatory, up to about 250 girls of color, no Blacks, no Indians, and no whites, just girls of color. And when coming out of Reformatory, I then had to find myself in an environment in South Africa. Where do I fit in? I don't fit in with the coloreds. I don't fit in with the Blacks. I don't fit in with the whites. I don't fit in with the Indians. So here I find myself living on the threshold of an identity crisis. It really took a long time to kind of come around and to understand who I was, because I then later on got married also to a biracial man, and lived with him in the villages, and that was predominantly Black. So I could not even say anything beyond just a greeting, which was sawubona. But I had to learn the culture, learn the tradition, and understand the dynamics, but yet there was still the void of emptiness of who am I and where do I belong, because I'm here by association, I'm here through marriage, but this is not who I truly am. And also understanding that even with my mom herself is not one that can speak much into my life or actually have any impact, because she didn't raise me. So basically being raised from the Reformatory and coming out of Reformatory and having to raise myself to create my own social ethics, to create my own social norms, to understand what my own personal ethics were for myself, had definitely been a journey, and it still is a journey. It didn't come to, it really didn't hit that hard, was until I studied, applied at the university to study. And it was there where I had to do more research and go into the archives, and to only find out that literally being born a crime in the 1970s, but however, I paid a time for something that had nothing to do with me. I was not part of the social political upheaval of that time. And being in a reformatory is basically a place of which I know that the people in Europe, in the West, are very familiar with it and understand what the place is like and what it's there for. And having to be there for a specific time until I was 18. And just realizing that I was in an institution and did time for just being born. And not
let me stop you right there, because a lot of people who are probably listening to this interview are baffled with everything you're saying. You know, this is a legacy from the apartheid era. And for most people in other parts of the world, the concept of a reformatory, nobody really knows what that means. The fact that you were taken and put into an institution because you were biracial is another huge thing that people need to fully understand. I know Trevor Noah has written a book about being born a crime. Let's just go into the history of that a little bit and just step by step explain it, because again, the fact that you are colored, in some countries being colored means any person of color. In South Africa, it means something completely different. So let's just break that down. If you could just explain that to our listeners.
All right. Being colored in South Africa is basically it's broken up, in two categories. One, it could be biracial, where your appearance is either black or white, or it could be colored, a colored couple that produces a colored child. However, as we know the histories of apartheid, that interracial marriages was illegal, especially the blacks and the whites, was something that was illegal. Therefore, we had racial segregations where people were placed in different parts or were racially segregated according to their race. However, for many children, including Trevor Noah, for many children that were born directly from either like in our case, black and white, it was kind of difficult to be raised, and yet later on post-apartheid, it became a little bit better. So if you had both colored and colored mom parents, and it was okay to be raised because you were placed either in a colored segregated area. But then when you are neither black nor white, it's kind of difficult, because during the apartheid era, to be a more or less a child of color in the black community, you had to answer for that. And then you were not welcomed in the white community. So it's more similar to Trevor's younger than me. I'm 46, Trevor's in his mid-30s. Mm-hmm. So we had the same issue. However, Trevor's mom had able to put him in a basket and hide him away from the police, but my mom couldn't. My mom didn't have that privilege of even carrying me on her side for being that fair, and also can't place me amongst the white or my dad's family at that time. So she had absolutely no choice but to just hand me over to the state, where she found that I would have access to resources, housing, school, and an English name. So my English name, my colonial name, I would say, is Belinda Crawford, and my mom named me Nokuthula Mjweni. So here I have these two names. But however, being raised neither black, white, nor colored was a different case, especially for being a state child and moving from within the state. You move in stages. As an infant, you're placed in a foster care. And then when you reach puberty, you're raised in a place of safety. And then when just before you turn 18, they then transfer you through to an institution. But however, reformatories here in South Africa was for delinquent adolescent young women, and only women of color, not black girls, not Indians, not whites, only woman of color.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
What a fascinating life you have lived. And you've had to navigate living between worlds, the Black world, the white world, the colored world, and never quite fitting into any one of those.
Very true. Very, very true. I recently did my postgraduate studies based on examining my identity as a South African woman and as a liminal. I now identify as a liminal because I live between worlds. So even when people constantly ask me, what are you? So what are you? And my answer will just be, I am a woman. I'm a woman born in South Africa. That's who I am. Because there is no space and place for liminals. There's no space and place because even amongst the colors, I can't identify with them. I wasn't raised with them. And they have a specific culture, traditions, and creed. I wasn't raised with the Blacks and I wasn't raised with the whites. I was literally raised as a state kid up until 18 years old. And the first thing that I did when I came out of reformatory was to work. I was working and living on my own since the age of 17. My own apartment, earning a salary, getting up and going to work like an adult at the age of 18, at 18, I came out at 18. At 18, I had my own apartment.
Wow.
So that was the first thing that I did was to find a way as to how to survive since I don't fit in anywhere and not even knowing my mom or my family or who am I or who my gran is, where do they come from, what is their lineage, what's the family tree. So I had to sit with that void for a very long time, and only to realize that when I got into university, that even the education system that I had received in university, in reformatory, was not recognized outside in the public. So then that means I'm here. I am a woman that has officially elementary education. I don't have a secondary education because that is not seen or not recognized outside of reformatory, that which we were taught. And how did I ended up in university and graduating with an honors, and now I'm doing my master's.
Incredible. So out of all of these experiences that you've had, what were the 3 biggest lessons or learnings that you can share?
I think what I've come to learn is that I think everyone matters. That's the first thing I've learned. Everyone matters, and as much as it might have seemed as a disadvantage then, and probably which I had to wean myself out of, but it worked as an advantage for me because each individual matters. It saves me the grief as what we are currently facing in South Africa, the upheaval, the racial upheaval, the unrest, the inequalities that we are now facing that's now caused such tragedy, to put it that way. It places you in a space to be neutral and not biased in any way. So that for me, that's the first lesson. I now am in a space that where I contribute to society in a way that more from a neutral perspective versus me being biased or speaking from to say that in our culture, in our tradition, it shouldn't be like this or it shouldn't be like that. But for me, everyone matters, each individual. It doesn't matter whether you are black, white, whether you're Indian, whether you're colored. It doesn't matter who you are, but because you're a human being, you matter. You really, really matter. The second thing had to do, because I'm also a public theologian. So the second thing that I have learned is that every religion or their beliefs hold some sort of truth. There isn't one that is dominant over the other. Everyone has something to contribute to the society that we're living in, and one doesn't have to be oppressed or one doesn't have to be superior over the other. That's the second thing I've noticed. And the third thing that I've noticed is also this, what is Sorry, yes, I was saying that the third thing was gender equality, was that what is good for males is just as well good for females. That my life has taught me that no one is also inferior or superior to the other.
Wonderful.
Though we have separate roles, we have society, or even in the family structure, or even in relation to each other. But however, we can we work very well and blend very well together in equality.
Fantastic. Wow. So it sounds to me like everything that happened in your life taught you something. You came out of it a better person, having gone through that experience. It gives you sensitivity on how to deal with other people. Yes. Am I correct?
Very true. Yes.
Because you've actually gone through this. This has been your life experience. And that sensitivity is what's brought you to this point.
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
And do your studies reflect what you want to do with your life going forwards? What is the plan?
Yes. Hopefully, when I am done with my master's, I did mention to my supervisor that I think I want to stop at master's and not continue. But however, she doesn't see it that way. Especially with the type of research that I'm bringing to the academia. You know, the topic within itself is an underdeveloped and under-researched topic. And you're quite right. Maybe a lot of people, even in South Africa, are not even aware of what a reformatory is and who was there and why they were there and who came out of there. And what I also have to say is that a lot of women that were there, they came from different states and provinces within our country. For them, it's still been a traumatic experience to be in reformatory, because it really was not, it really wasn't pleasurable at all. It's something that they don't want to erase from their life. If that part can be erased, they would do so. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of the women that came out of there haven't amounted academically. Basically, they really haven't amounted and went further than reformatory in terms of education. So that's also been something that has been very, which I still feel that, oh my gosh, that, you know, how did I even manage to get there? And I really had to fight a lot to get there. And I think it really had to go through a stage of understanding that I literally don't have secondary education, primary education and tertiary, but the middle is missing, or the middle is insignificant. And it really was a struggle, even within academia. So with them wanting me to pursue my studies, they feel that it's actually a source that I'm bringing to academia and bringing something new that hasn't been before. Yeah. But I would like to lecture, hopefully one day, lecture in theology, lecture around social identity issues pertaining to religion and theology. I would like to lecture one day. So that's why I'm studying.
Absolutely wonderful, Belinda. Wow, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence tonight. All these fascinating stories coming from women from all over the world. I just want to thank everybody who's tuning in today. The Herstory platform is connecting one woman at a time, one story at a time. And as we share our stories, we shine a light on the past, like apartheid, with what Belinda has shared tonight. We talk about the future, what is coming, and the world that we want to create. So tune in again tomorrow. I will be back with yet another fascinating guest on the Herstory TV and the Herstory podcast. Have a fantastic evening wherever you are in the world. And Belinda, thank you again.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Bye for now, everybody.